In any city, in any country, go to any mental institution or halfway house you can get yourself to. When you reach the front desk, ask to visit someone who calls himself the holder of the 5 rings. If the worker tells you how much he loves that book, ask again immediately. If you are fortunate, the worker will assume a grim expression and lead you to a staircase. The staircase will run straight downward, deeper than any underground installation should be. As you and the worker go down the stairs, your guide will whistle a tune so enticing you may be tempted to ask what tune it is. Do not ask what tune it is. Do not even turn to see the worker if he whistles the tune. If you do, pray for a swift and painless end to your life. Once you reach the bottom of the staircase, the worker will open the door to a blank gray room with Chinese characters written in blood on the wall. Do not try to read the Chinese characters, or you will be driven into a state of insanity so profound and horrifying that the experiences had in this insanity cannot be described. The worker will leave the room. 15 seconds later, if you have not read the Chinese characters on the walls, a person identical to you will appear and challenge you. Should you decline the challenge, your double will shake its head and disappear. You will hear a chorus of snarls and growls and moans growing louder and louder, and your body and soul will feel excruciating pain as you are eaten alive by the mad creatures around you. Accept the challenge despite your fears. If you lose, your double will eat your soul, and your soul will feel infinite pain. Most have a doppelganger too skilled to defeat. If you win, ask your double who else desires them. Your double will tell you, in horrific detail, the ones who desire the objects. You must only look into its eyes. Do not look at what is in your double's right hand, or it will seize the opportunity and kill you. When your doppelganger is done speaking, it will hand you several small, hard items. Thank it, then, without opening your hand, leave through the door from whence you came. You will be near the place you call home. At that point, you may look into your hand to see that you have 5 golden rings linked together. These rings are Object 181 of 538. The horrors they have seen are surpassed only by those they have caused. In any city, in any country, go to the city hall or place of local government. When you reach the front desk, ask to visit the one who calls herself the holder of shame. The worker will stiffen and put on an obvious facade of confusion, quietly apologize for the misunderstanding while discreetly handing the worker a cash bribe. If the bribe is sufficient, you will be directed through a door behind the desk. The door will lead to a hallway that is bright at the entrance, yet grows dimmer further down, such that the very end is completely dark. Walk slowly down the hallway. Should a figure emerge from the darkness, stop immediately. If the figure disappears once you have stopped, then the sleep into which you will fall will be eternal. If the figure remains, however, then wait for it to coalesce into a clear image. It will reveal itself to be a beautiful, youthful girl, perhaps in her early teenage years. The blood splattered across her clothes will make it apparent she is bullet-riddled, and tears will flow slowly from her eyes. When she smiles sadly at you, ask, "What was their mistake?" The girl will cast her eyes to the ground. For the briefest heartbeat of a moment, your vision will be lost. When it returns, the girl will be immediately in front of you, her body trembling as she appears to hold back tears. Move to embrace her. If she turns away from you, then you deserve no sympathy for the fate you will soon suffer. If the girl preempts you by embracing you first, simply let her. Her blood will smear across your clothes. She will bring her face to yours, such that her tears will soak your own cheek. Hold her close, and submit to the drowsy feeling that will overcome you. You will awaken in the place you call home. There will no longer be any trace of the girl's blood on your clothes, but your cheek will still be damp with her tears. Her tears are Object 182 of 538. Turn away from the path you have chosen, lest you repeat their mistake. In any city, in any country, go to any opera house or concert hall you can get yourself to. When you find the head custodian, ask to visit the one who calls herself the holder of belief. The custodian will sigh in resignation, then lead you into the main performance hall. The custodian will take to the main stage, then leave. Wait until he is completely gone, then pull aside the curtain. If what you see is what one would expect to find behind a stage curtain, then you were not meant to complete the task, and the remainder of your life can be measured in minutes. Instead, you might see a wall of marble, solid white, except where scrawled in black. Approach the wall, and you will see that said scrolls are indeed thousands of personal signatures. At this point, you might notice the young woman off to the right, adding to the scratched names. She will be carving in a reproduction of your own signature, perfect to the last detail. Watch the young woman in silence. When she is aware of your presence, she will turn around and look you in the eye. A white mist will obscure the bottom half of her face, but even what little you see is enough to determine that she possesses a certain mysterious beauty. A disembodied and somehow familiar male voice will ask if you have seen the woman's beloved husband. Ignore the question and ask, how great is their desire to reunite? If the woman's eyes narrow in response, then hopefully you have made peace with your enemies. Otherwise, the woman will produce a violin and proceed to play. The violin itself will not produce sound, but you will hear, in your mind, the sound of crashing waves against a beach. Focus all of your will onto the woman's eyes. However, for to listen to crashing waves is to have them resolve into a demonic chorus that will drive you to madness. As you focus on the woman's eyes, you will feel within you what they feel. You will feel their demonic urge for reunification, and the strength of this feeling may very well tear your mind. If you recover from the haze of their feeling, you will find the marble wall almost completely blank, with only your own signature remaining. The woman will bow to you, and the disembodied voice will thank you for your understanding. Look down to your dominant hand to find that the bow from the woman's violin is there. Playing with it will produce the purest music thought possible, but only to your ears. When you look up again, you will be standing outside the concert hall. The violin bow is Object 183 of 538. They believe only in their reunion. But what do you believe? In any city, in any country, go to any hospital you can get yourself to. When you reach the reception area, ask to visit the patient who calls herself the holder of brutality. Should the worker call out loud for the guards, quickly apologize and leave the hospital. Never return there, and wait for a year to pass before trying again at a different hospital. It's best not to speak of what will happen if you're ever caught at that hospital again. If you're in the right place, the worker should give you a sadistic grin and lead you towards the intensive care unit. As the worker passes patients, He will pause to check the name tags on their beds. Be wary of your surroundings, and be careful to never touch any of the personnel holding medical tools. The patience of the people here runs very thin, and they are quite irritable. You don't want to end up being one of their patients here, for you are sure never to return to the outside world. When you reach bed number 538, you will see an old man lying there. You must lock eyes with him. The moment your gaze meets his, he will, uncharacteristic of his weakened and emaciated body, shout at the top of his lungs, "They're here!" After uttering these words, there will be only explosions outside the hospital, as if you're being hammered by artillery. This will go on non-stop, and soon the ICU will be hit, and many of the patients and workers will die. Close your eyes, and do not move from the spot you're standing on, no matter what you hear, feel, or smell. Open them, and you will be forever buffeted by artillery shells and all manners and types of projectile weapons used in war. You will feel every tear of muscle and every crack of bone as they pound on your body like storm rain, shredding it like a sheet of paper. And when your body is but a pile of dust, it will regrow and the cycle will begin again. Such will be your fate for all eternity, if you give in to impatience. You must keep your eyes closed until the bombardment stops. You can only be sure that you are safe when all is silent, except for the crying of a girl. Should you hear anything other than this, better not to open your eyes and accept your fate. Only when all that remains is the sound of the girl crying, it is safe to open your eyes. Your environment will be bleak and desolate, the destruction total and complete. Body parts will be scattered all around you, still quivering with anguish and torment of their death. In fact, the only things left standing will be you, if you didn't move, and bed number 538, where the old man was earlier. But in his place now should be the crying girl, no more than 20, and of unspeakable beauty. Do not linger on her splendor, lest you go mad when she reveals the truth to you. Ask instead, who is worse, us or them? After uttering these words, soldiers will appear and stake you to a wall that wasn't there before. One stake per limb and one through your chest. You won't die, though. You are not being granted the luxury of such a simple fate. The soldiers will then proceed to ridicule and torture the crying girl with every method known and unknown to man. The faces of the soldiers will soon change until all of them bear your face. They will beat her with the shoulder stocks of their guns. They will put needles between her fingernails, eventually removing them. They will make her drink water until her abdomen is grotesquely distended. They will rape her, do things only the governments do to the worst of criminals, and even then, only with utmost secrecy. And you will feel every second of her pain. As she is being tormented, her face will begin to morph into everyone you know, all of the people you have ever loved and hated. She will look into your eyes, pleading that you help her, but heed her not. Else you will replace her in that bed, and your pain will know no end. After what seems like an eternity, the soldiers will end her suffering by cutting off her head. A soldier will then approach you and ask, "So what did you think?" Only answer, "We are all victims." After which the soldier will plunge his hand into your chest, and it will feel as though he is pulling out your heart. Though you have managed to stay conscious through everything you've witnessed so far, this will push you over the edge into blackness. When you wake up, you will be lying in the place you call home. Next to you will be an unlabeled tin can, with a number of nails driven through it. If you choose to open the lid, you will find inside a pitch-black void, and anything put inside will be lost to you forever. The tin can is Object 184 of 538. We are not as different from them as we like to think.
In any city, in any country, go to any elementary school or grade school you can get yourself to. Wear sturdy, comfortable gloves, and have your egress planned. Confidently enter and seek out the classroom with the youngest children inside. Ignore any who question you or attempt to impede you in any way. They seek only to delay. Let nothing and no one stand in your way. Once in the classroom, approach the instructor, stand face to face, and demand to see the holder of the game. If the instructor says anything or does anything, flee. Your freedom is at stake. If, however, the instructor stops abruptly and stares intently over your right shoulder, you're in the right place. Do not turn around. Instead, announce with as much confidence as you can to muster, "It is time for the game." Behind you will hear many skittering sounds, interrupted by the occasional thud of stone hitting sand. Resist all temptation to turn and look. It would only serve to unnerve you, and you will need your wits about you soon enough. Instead, wait until the sounds have ceased. Wait patiently. It could take a while. When the sounds have passed, remain motionless. The instructor will announce, "It is awaiting its amusement." Then, and only then, turn slowly around. The scene before you will, quite to your surprise, be much the same as when you entered. The only change being that the desks have been moved against the wall. The children have formed a circle and will be sitting facing the center in absolute silence, eyes shut tightly. The effect may be unnerving, but do not let it deter you. You must quickly enter the circle. Be assured this is not the same room that you entered, and it is no longer safe. The center of the circle, on the other hand, is safe. So feel free to take a moment to gather yourself, regain your equilibrium, and perhaps even stretch into preparation to run. You will be soon enough. When you are prepared, as you are able, approach any child you choose and stare at its eyes, shut as they are. Calmly ask, "How does it entertain?" Stare intently into the child's eyes for the response. If there is no response, move to the next child and repeat the question. Depending on the state of the game, it could take as many as 8 trips around the circle, or as few as none. There is no rush here. When, eventually, a child opens its eyes, and you find yourself staring into empty black sockets, then you must prepare for the game. After a pause, the child's face will contort into a look of rapt excitement. The holder is coming. Behind you, you will again hear the sound of skittering and stone on sand. This time, however, you will hear the sound of running feet. Resist the urge to turn and look upon what is rushing so eagerly towards you. It will not take long to arrive, for it enjoys the game, and will be eager to play. Its arrival will be announced with a high shrieking laughter. The laughter will continue until you turn, and when you do, you will find yourself face to face with the holder of the game. The holder of the game can appear as anyone who was ever a child. Don't be fooled. This does not mean that it is one itself. It'll be dressed conservatively in whatever clothes are appropriate for its guise. The only distinguishing mark will be the wild look in its eyes. It is a look of complete and utter exuberance. Do not meet its eyes, if at all possible. You'll only be distracted, and you really can't afford that. The holder will extend its right hand while keeping its left tucked behind its back. It'll ask, "Shall we play?" Ignore both its words and its offer of greeting. Instead, concern yourself with its left hand. Gloves are a necessity, for if any part of the holder's hand should touch any part of you, you will be doomed to the circle for eternity. Thus is the nature of the game. Carefully remove the object from the holder's left hand. The holder will make a great show of resistance, but you will find it surprisingly easy to retrieve the object, a simple red rubber ball. Once you are holding the game, the holder will stop immediately and begin staring at it with rapt attention. When you feel you are ready, remove either glove and hold the game firmly in your bare hand. Bounce it once on the floor and catch it. You will feel great joy, and it'll feel as if all of your cares are lifted. Do not allow yourself to stop and enjoy this feeling. turn and run for the door. From behind you, hopefully from far, far behind you, you will hear the sounds again. "The Seeker approaches," will echo in your ears. The halls will reverberate with the sounds of every child in the world counting. 1, 2, 3. Do not concern yourself with the counting. Do not concern yourself with anything. Merely clutch your prize and run, using whatever means you possess to travel as far from the school as possible. The game is object 185 out of 538. When the counting stops, the holder shall become the seeker, and the game will truly begin. In any city, in any country, travel to a guidance center or another place where you may receive counseling. Any place will work, but it is better to pick one as far as possible from the places at which you have met the other holders. It is advisable to wait at least a week after contact with another holder before trying this, for this particular holder has no love for the others. If, however, he does detect the stench of the others on you, he will place his mark on you. You will henceforth be identified to every seeker you come across, and they will attempt to take your objects from you, or kill you if you have none. However, some consider this to be an advantage, in that you may not necessarily lose such an encounter. Once you are there, approach the attendant or secretary and ask to see the holder of understanding. None shall be denied entry to this place except for 2 reasons. If, in your life, you have ever given advice which is insincere, or given advice that secretly furthers your own agenda, it is unwise to approach this holder. Instead, you must seek forgiveness from all those to whom you have deceived. If somebody denies you forgiveness, then you will not be able to seek the holder of understanding until that person dies. If, however, you have not violated this condition, or the other, then the attendant will nod and ask you to take a seat. An unspecified amount of time will pass. If you become impatient, or wish to leave, do so, with the knowledge that this holder values patience, and that you will not be given another chance to seek him. As you wait, you may still grow hungry, thirsty, and experience any other bodily urges, except none of them will kill you, or grow stronger than a constant irritation. After a length of time which can range from seconds to days, somebody will enter from an adjoining room. This person, which is, of course, the holder, will have the guise that is most calming and reassuring to you, but do not be fooled by it. Error in his domain thus far has not resulted in death or agony, and there is a reason for it. This holder considers himself above such overt measures, and seeks to distinguish himself from his brethren. Be warned, however, there are far worse punishments than insanity, death, and pain, and this holder knows them all. This holder will greet you warmly and beckon you inside the room. Follow him quickly and in an orderly fashion. Once you follow him inside, the door behind you will close. Do not attempt to leave until after this is over. Wait for him to sit. He will invite you to sit on the comfortable-looking chair opposite his. Once you are both seated, then it will begin. One at a time, every person you have ever ignored, ever turned a blind eye towards, and ever refused them in their time of need will enter. You will experience their suffering, their anguish, and their pain, just as you did the first time, except with a difference. Now you will feel it, and more importantly, you will understand what you cost them with your heartlessness. Some of them may attack you. The pain you will feel is what they felt, and you will suffer the physical wounds they suffered, the ones that you were blissfully ignorant to, but the ones you caused. Others will relate their emotional torment to you, and soon you will sink into misery and agony at the weight of their torment. All their sadness, their anguish, their despair will be placed onto you. At the end of the ordeal, the person you have hurt most will appear. If you still do not understand the agony that you have caused through your life, behind them the holder will sigh, hand your victim a dagger, and they will be given the power of your salvation or damnation. If you are lucky, the capacity for understanding, and thus forgiveness, will be with your victim, and they will spare you. Otherwise, you will die by a stab to the heart. However, if you understand the pain you have caused, but you do not care, the holder will banish your victim and assume his true form. You may attempt to battle him if you dare with whatever objects you have concealed from his sharp senses. It is an extremely difficult fight, and there is only a slight chance of you winning. If you do, you may take the object from his corpse, but beware, most of the other holders fear this particular holder, and now they fear you. Never again will you go unnoticed by them, even if you cease your quest. But should you fully understand the terrible things you have done, both covertly and overtly, the holder will send the last person away and then smile at you. This is your signal. You must tell the holder of everything, all the suffering, the pain, the agony you have both caused and gone through in your life, ending with the pain caused to you and the pain that you, in turn, caused to others through this quest. Do not worry, for you have passed his test, and no harm will come to you. At the end of your tale, you must stand and ask the holder this: do you understand? If he shakes his head sadly, you will wake up in your bed without any memory of the objects or your quest, and never again will you encounter them. If he nods, you are free to leave. However, you will not receive his object. If he asks, do you? You must step forward and embrace him. Try not to show repulsion at his touch, for his illusionary form does not extend that far. Then he will take a custom-made black revolver from his pocket and hand it to you. Inscribed on the barrel are the words, "The Widowmaker." The gun holds any bullet and is indeed a formidable ally. This holder understands what you have been through, and he is also your ally. In your time of need, neither he nor his gun will fail you. You may only call upon him once. The Widowmaker is Object 186 of 538. Now that you understand the price of your actions, there is no choice of your devotion to your cause. To recant now is an insult to all those who you came across. There is one last thing. The other condition for entry is that you must have never visited the one who rides on horseback. The holder of understanding and that particular holder have a long history. However, if you take the Widowmaker with you in visiting the rider, you may yet obtain his object. In any city, in any country, go to any mental institution or halfway house you can get yourself to. Approach the front counter with a look of determination on your face. Ask to see the holder of ecstasy. The attendant will not acknowledge you immediately. Instead, she will wake as if from a stupor, her arms sliding across the counter, and she will amble down a previously unseen hallway. Follow her. The corridor will twist and turn, seemingly in impossible ways. You will notice the air become more humid, the hall becoming brighter, although no source of light is apparent. You will be shown a door slightly ajar, and the attendant will shuffle off without a word. Push open the door, ignoring its slimy coating. Inside this room will be a brilliant white light, as bright and as high up as the sun. The walls will be lined with a floral print, the floor will be neatly trimmed grass, and standing prominently in the center of the room is what looks like a large flower bud, about half your height. An elderly man will be sitting in the corner, eyes closed. He will not notice you or interact in any way, save for responding to the question, "What if it dies?" The man will stand, walk to the plant in the center, feel for the tip of its bud, and tear off a piece. Sound will now cease. No scream may leave your mouth. No clap of your hands will be heard. Even the voice of your own thoughts will be pushed out. After a few moments, a deep vibration will enter your mind. Suddenly, like a boom of thunder, The world around you will shake and rumble as every physical pleasure imaginable engulfs your senses. Your eyes will roll back as you fall to the floor writhing in orgasmic joy. You must reject these feelings, lest you lay on the floor of that room until you die from dehydration. You must imagine only the worst pain you felt. Dig your nails into your chest, scratch yourself until you focus only on the pain. The vibrations will stop, and you will stand. Inside the tear on the flower is a seed. Take it, leave the room, and make sure to focus only on your discomfort. The seed is object 187 of 538. Plant it or not. The choice is yours. In some cities, in some countries, a certain mental institution or halfway house will mysteriously draw you. Once you enter, do not talk to anyone, lest you find yourself under the influence of some other object. Upon reaching the front desk, look for a brochure of a bar or pub. If there are none, then you have failed. All of your efforts up to this point have been for naught. If some can be found, take one and quietly leave. Go to the bar and sit near the darkest corner. Place the brochure on the table and do not order a drink. Wait. 2 men will walk into the bar. Their appearances will vary for each seeker. Both of them will sit at your table. Before any of them speaks, ask them, which of you is the holder of the blank canvas? One of them will nod, and the other will leave. These were the instructions, and Brandon Kite the Seeker was quite unsure of the quest's authenticity. Still, the 60-something bald old man before him smiled as his companion walked away. "Well then," the old man finally spoke. "Seeker, before we begin, let me warn you that there are no powers to gain nor truths to find beyond this point." The old man stood up and began to walk away. "If you continue, nothing but a heavy burden awaits you." He continued, "Follow me if you remain steadfast in your quest." Brandon stood up and left the bar with the old man. The geezer was limping, and his eyes showed glimmers of terror and despair. They betrayed the horrors that he has experienced. "You were a seeker. I can see it in your eyes," Brandon said as he hastened his steps to catch up. "Yes," came the old man's answer. "I was called Ferdinand Gonzalez." "I assume you or the other young guy was this Azrael level 5 on the net?" Brandon queried as they turned into a dark alley. The old man kept silent. Both men walked towards a padlocked door, water-stained and moss-encrusted. Ferdinand brought an old key out of his vest pocket, and Brandon immediately recognized it for what it was. "Wait, is that the—" Brandon gasped. "Silence!" the old man interrupted him. "Before you step through this door, remember that I warned you. There is nothing but damnation beyond this door." Brandon nodded and entered. As the door closed behind Brandon, the old man sighed. "Why must the young be so foolish?" he said as he disappeared into the shadows. Brandon was in a dark room. The only source of light was a small candle on the palm of a floating disembodied hand. The light flickered as the hand twitched again and again. Breathing in hard and mustering his strength, he recalled the instructions posted on the nether regions of the internet and asked again, "What must I protect?" Whispers came from the direction of the disembodied hand. They pierced Brandon's mind, and he felt as if they were probing him. They were judging him. They were the souls of the seekers that have failed. If they judged him impure or corrupt, they would rip him apart and take his soul. As each whisper drew near, he saw fleeting images of their lives, their accomplishments, their victories, and their ends. Brandon knew what he had to do. He mustered up the courage and steeled his convictions. They must never be joined. At least one must be kept away. He kept repeating to himself. Light suddenly erupted inside the room. A fluorescent bulb had switched on. It looked like a warehouse of some sort with crates stacked up to the ceiling. In the far corner was a young girl. Her long brown hair was scattered around her face and shoulders as she shivered, clutching her legs. Brandon rushed beside her and carried her. A whisper echoed in Brandon's mind. "Brandon." The voice called him. It was the voice of his father, a seeker who failed. "She must never become one with the others. Protect her. Run. For wherever you go, they will follow. Keep running. As long as she is with you, your mind will be strong. But they will come for her. You will have to run." Crashing through the crates and running through the door, Brandon exited the alley into the light of the city's neon sign, still cradling the little girl in his arms. A low and steady moan came forth from the direction of the mental institution 4 blocks away. It sent chills down his spine and affirmed his senses. They were coming for her, and she is the blank canvas. She is Object 188 of 538. She will play a significant role in the dark days to come, but for now, she must be protected. In any city, in any country, go to any mental institution or halfway house you can get yourself to. When you reach the front desk, ask to visit someone who calls himself the Holder of Justice. Should an appraising look appear on her face, she will hand you a small gardening spade and a dog's leash. You will be led to the institution's basement, where the attendant will gesture to a trap door in a dark corner. Enter the trap door and climb the ancient wooden ladder down into the sub-basement. Once your feet touch the earth below, the trapdoor will slam shut and seal itself. You will emerge in a small earthen room dimly illuminated by a small candle on the far wall. Do not touch this candle lest it go out. It is all that is preventing this room from being plunged into pitch blackness, and this room's fell inhabitant can only sleep with the light on. On the wall opposite the candle, you will see an old window frame cut into the soil. Approach the window. If you see your reflection, you are safe to open the window and climb through. If you see no reflection, dive through the window as quickly as possible, for the creature who calls this room home has stirred and is ready to turn the lights off and start its day. It is hungry, and your soul is on the breakfast menu. Once through the window, you will find yourself in a gargantuan subterranean cavern with small leafy plants growing in clusters as far as the eye can see, lit by a series of large braziers sticking out of the ground. Unless you have a serious masochistic streak, avoid looking up at all costs, for above hang the rotting and skeletal corpses of countless thousands of babies, their umbilical cords used as nooses. You will see gaunt, haggard-looking men in the distance, stooped at the waist, tending to these plants. Should one collapse in the middle of a field, don't bother rushing to his aid, for it's already too late. Besides, they'll be back, and none can die here, not permanently, anyway. Any who meet their fate in this place become the property of the holder, their souls forever consigned to tending this macabre garden. Keep moving. The farther you are from these haunted souls and their eternal work, the safer you will be. You will feel a nudge at your shin. At your feet will be a small, wire-haired terrier, wagging his tail happily and panting at you. He is to be your companion on this most unfortunate of quests. Should you hear the beginning of a tiny scream, quickly clamp your hands over your ears. If you survive, then know that you were quick enough. At least, you were this time. You will be wise to rip part of your shirt sleeve off and then roll them into balls to stuff into your ears in hopes that they will be enough to keep the screams at bay. For your task is to find and harvest one specific mandrake root in this field. And all the legends of them are unfortunately true. Put as much distance between yourself and the nearest harvester as possible, for to hear the screams of a mandrake means instant death. The root you are looking for will not scream when you dig it up, so you'll be safe from the death on that front. Unfortunately, there are countless thousands of plants in this field, and you have only one dog to sacrifice and one life to freely give. I would get started if I were you, as the clock is ticking. The holder is not the only inhabitant of this cavern, but he is the only one safe from his housemate. Every hour on the hour, a huge beast comes forth to feed on the harvesters in the field. If you are unlucky enough to observe its entrance, you'll notice that the other hunters ignore his presence, despite the fact that they are being slaughtered en masse. They've already died at least once, and they know that they will be back. I would advise you to put as much upwind distance between yourself and this beast as possible when you find your hiding place, for it has an excellent sense of smell and loves fresh meat. Should by some miracle you find the correct mandrake plant without dying, pulling it up will reveal a hole in the ground with a ladder that extends some 50 feet below into a smaller cavern, lit by 2 lanterns. In the center of the cavern will be a small wooden table with 2 chairs. On one chair sits an elderly man with a wisp of white hair atop his head, bedecked in opulent robes. Do not sit in the other chair, no matter how tired you are from your task, for if you do, the man will leap across the table with superhuman speed and rip out your throat. The man will notice your presence and look up at you with a scowl. He does not appreciate being interrupted and will not tolerate your presence for long. You must quickly ask the man one and only one question. What did they do wrong? The man's eyes will sparkle with sudden understanding, and he will proceed to explain the history behind the infant corpses in his garden above. You see, the mandrake roots will only grow underneath the area where an unrepentant murderer was hanged. Millennia ago, the man started his garden by hanging the perpetrators of unsolved homicides in his garden, but through trial and error found that younger victims created sweeter mandrake roots. Currently hanging in the cavern above are all the babies throughout history who were born from complicated pregnancies which caused the death of the mother. Many a man is outraged to the point of tears by this man's tale. Showing sadness is considered weak, and as a result, the man will rush forward and snap your neck with the slightest hint of grief. What you must do is rush forward and grab the opposite chair, heft it into the air, and swing it with all your might, breaking it across the top of the man's head. He will crumple to the ground, incapacitated and nearly dead. Now you must carry his corpse-like body up the ladder and into the cavern above. The harvesters will stop their work and watch you with hope in their eyes. Do not disappoint them. You will notice a noose already prepared for the man. Slip his neck through it, tighten it, and release. A cheer will go up from the collected workers as the man's neck snaps. His death will free all the souls of the harvesters and the babies, and before long you will find yourself alone in the cavern with the hanging holder. The ground around you will be clear, the plants having shriveled and disintegrated. Below the man's corpse will be a single mandrake plant, glowing an ethereal blue. Dig it up without fear, it owes you. Once extracted, the root will begin to sing a beautiful, haunting melody, and you will feel yourself at peace. Set the root down and meditate for roughly 5 minutes. When you open your eyes, you will find yourself at the kitchen table of the place you call home. The mandrake will be sleeping soundly. Listening to its song now will provide rest and cure all but the most serious wounds. The mandrake root is object 189 of 538. It will wail in agony when they all come together. Will you be there to hear it?
In any city, in any country, go to any mental institution or halfway house you can get yourself to. When you reach the front desk, ask to visit something that calls itself the Holder of Putridity. The attendant will pay no mind to your request and will go about his, and only his, business. Upon the end of that worker's shift, follow him home and sleep outside his door. When he returns to work the next day,
Request an audience with the holder once more, and repeat the actions from the previous day. After 120 days of requests, the attendant will then gaze at you and gently beckon you to follow. He will lead you out the back door of the institution's lobby and into the courtyard of the facility. In the center of this courtyard will be a small well. He will motion for you to leap inside it. Do so and do not climb out until its night is firmly set. To do so otherwise will cause your internal organs to revolt and burst inside your body, dooming you to a slow, agonizing death from sepsis. If you do manage to wait in the filth at the bottom of the well for the night to come, you can then make your attempt to climb out. If you hear any noise while climbing, climb faster, for if you fail or delay even the slightest amount, the carnal essence of grime and disgust will reach out for you and snap you back into its realm of decay to rot for festering eternities. Should you make it out of the well, you will see that the landscape of the courtyard has changed. What was once a neatly maintained garden is now a repugnant swamp. As you step out of the corroded stone surface of the well, you'll plunge thigh-deep into a sickly black water, periodically bubbling and bursting with an abominable stench of infinite sickness. A glance around will show you that you are encased by an impossibly dense ring of coniferous trees, restricting you to the small circle of horrific filth and disgust. Gaze across from where you emerged from the well, however, and you will see him, a great, hideous pig, gloriously corpulent, gazing at you with listless yet nonetheless malevolent black eyes. His tightly stretched skin smeared with all colors and textures of blood, semen, and vomit, which leak profusely and endlessly from his array of orifices and grotesque sores. Step up to the porcine abomination and gaze not too long at the perpetually running fluids that emit from his girth, or they may run together to form a picture of diseases and plagues unimaginable to a mere mortal such as yourself. Instead, gaze directly into his beady, pitch-black eyes and ask a single question. How will they infect this world? The pig will begin to speak in a grating, squealing, gore-drenched voice, its throat clogged with all breeds of mucus and scum. It'll tell you every detail of every disease that has walked the earth. You will learn the intricacies of the cellular structure of the Ebola virus, the Black Plague, acquired immune deficiency syndrome, and every other great and small infection that has cursed creatures throughout the ages. You will be instructed in the principles of decomposition in humans and other living creatures, including the horrifying death rituals and funeral rites of entities from worlds far beyond your own. You will not forget a single detail of what you hear, for what you hear is the testament of putridity in all its majestic forms. And you will learn of the greatest of them all, an infection which will sweep across the earth very soon, bringing a fate infinitely worse than death to all denizens of the world. If you do not go irrevocably and instantly insane from hearing his name alone, you may be able to proceed. Upon the end of the pig's litany of plagues, he will ever so slowly heave his girth to face you directly. At the moment, he will inhale lungfuls of putrid air and breathe them upon you in an exhalation of utter blackness and sickness. You must breathe deeply of these heinous winds, or the creature before you will not hesitate to devour you, as his hunger is vast and insatiable. If you breathe without hesitancy, you will feel yourself fall back into the well of the institution from whence you came, and, if you have the strength, you may climb out and continue your journey. But upon finally coming back to your world, your body will be racked with sputtering coughs, and your skin will split and crack with all manner of sores, letting pus and grime run freely across you, and your very soul will seem to turn as black as the cunt of a syphilitic whore. This disease you now carry is Object 190 of 538. Should you bring them together, perhaps this plague will leave you. But at what cost?